I mentioned earlier The Conversation. The Conversation is a website for academics publishing their articles funded by you, taxpayers, through the universities. But like all, and I mean all, media outlets here that are funded by the government, it's being captured totally by the left. Your taxes, their soapbox. In fact, The Conversation refuses to publish, it's not a conversation, it's a monologue, because it refuses to publish any articles that question, say, global warming alarmism. They're banned. But using your money, it has now published an article by academics on how to have safe sex, which these days means not sex so that you don't end up with a venereal disease or AIDS, but sex where you don't end up with police charging for not getting proper consent. Now, this article recommends that you get cue cards, for instance, to remind you exactly what questions to ask at the appropriate time in your fumbling around. And it says that maybe you should look to kink communities such as bondage and sadomasochist groups. It says they often have well-established protocols for talking about consent, and there's arguably much that we could learn from them. So if you can find a mistress or so, they may put you in a good stead. Now, this article on this taxpayer-funded website on safe sex is decorated with 4 photographs. I'll show you them, and you see if you can find out what's missing. There's a main photograph, that's of 2 women, and then there's a picture of 2 men who've just had it on, and then there's one person who's not happy at all, as well as a picture of 4 legs. The gender of those legs is unknown. Joining me is Rowan Dean, a columnist, the editor of The Spectator Australia, host of Outsiders on Sky News every Sunday at 9 a.m, and also an author of many tomes, to which is now added this one, a new book that's out now that we will discuss, the Canberry Tales, as in Canberra, Canterbury, whatever. But first, Rowan, the pictures for this article on how to have safe sex seem to me to ignore a rather big part of its potential audience. Which part and why?
Yes, well, if you looked at the website and whizzed through it like most attention-deprived individuals do, you would be well. First of all, you would be pretty convinced that in order to consent to sex, the key thing was that you were with a same-sex couple. That would seem to be the best way to consent to sex is make sure you're with someone of the same sex. So that would seem to be the kind of overriding impression, if you like, that you would get from it. Then you would get the impression that, okay, well, if you can't have sex with someone who's the same sex, you could have sex with yourself. That's fine. You can consent. I've always said, it's probably not that difficult to consent for people to consent to having sex with themselves. I'm not sure they need a website to tell them how to do it, but apparently they do. And thirdly, if you were flipping through the website, they've almost borrowed from Orwell. 4 legs good or 2 legs better or whatever it is. So 4 legs involved in sex is fine. There's no clue there as if they're opposite. Heaven forbid they would be opposite sexes, these 4 legs. But, 4 legs is approvable. This is just, propaganda. Here we go again. It was always the case that we would see after the same-sex marriage legislation came in, that we would see heavy propaganda at the taxpayer's expense. I have no problem with people putting forward whatever points of view they want, but here's the taxpayer paying to basically promote same-sex amongst people looking for, means to consent to whatever sexual activities. The underlying message here, Andrew, is that really, if you want good and proper and, woke sex, make sure it's same-sex.
And of course, racial minorities were heavily represented in the pictures. They took a lot of care to exclude straight white males. Absolutely. No straight white males. We know how terrible they are. And of course now, don't consult your priest, consult your local bondage mistress.